Good afternoon, good evening, good zinta, good y'all, whatever it may be where you are. I'm not sports cards. Hope you're doing well. Remember to like and subscribe. Been a while since I checked in. Been working on a lot of different things, and you know, haven't been spending as much time with card collecting. But I've been having this thought. I wanted to discuss today about gambling and card collecting. And obviously, this is not news, but I have some different takes on it. Right. So that's what I would tell you. Is like, and I want to just talk about kind of the progression of gambling in trading cards and like where we came from versus where we are, kind of how we got where we are, and like how I see it unfolding. And we can talk about whether you want to judge it, whether it's good for card collecting, bad for card collecting. That's, time will tell. I have my own opinions, which I will obviously state, but yeah, this is the cardboard casino. So I've done up a few graphics here. We talk about basically over the time how card collecting. I'm going to whip through a few graphics here. Here's like an overview of it, how gambling has infiltrated the card collecting hobby, blind backs format, breaks, skyrocketing price of products, chase cards, manufactured scarcity, and influence and hype culture. Hold on here. We'll just start with this one. So listen, I'm an old school, come on an old head when it comes to card collecting. I started in the 80s, like many people did during the original card boom. And listen, card collecting, like opening boxes, which to me is still pure joy. Opening, when I get some sort of 80 tops wax where I can smell the gum in the cardboard and just hearing that crinkle as you open the pack, it's kind of pure joy for me. It's what got me back into card collecting, just opening packs. It's so much fun. And listen, it was gambling when I did it as a kid, right? You'd buy a box, you'd have 36 lottery tickets in there, and some of them would hit and some wouldn't. And the joy of opening it was, it was still gambling. It was introducing yourself to gambling at a young age. And I like gambling. I've enjoyed it my whole life. I've lived in both Atlantic City and Las Vegas multiple times. So I've grown up around gambling. And so that, like, I am not averse to gambling. And I think, like everything else, everything in moderation, it makes sense. So when you talk about kind of the basic thought process here is that, like, packs are sealed. We don't know what's in them. And that was part of the fun that probably brought everybody into the hobby. And you go back long enough, and the value proposition was different. You could buy a box for $20, $30, $40, and that was all there was. And it was always kind of the thrill of the chase, versus what it is now. And we'll get into different parts. So to me, again, just the idea that we're opening things that we don't know what's inside is gambling, right? Like everything is gambling. Like Ned Flanders talking about not getting insurance is gambling. He doesn't believe in it, so Ned Flanders doesn't have insurance. All right, so we'll whip through here to number 2, breaks and group gambling. Now, this is, I will tell you, I have my own opinions. I wanted to I used some cool stuff to make these graphics. So they are not in a particular order, but so breaks and group gambling. Should I do this one now? Whatever. We'll do it now. So obviously, breaks and group gambling have been around for, 15 years, maybe longer. I don't know. And the idea is, early on, from what I could tell, it was very kind of pure, which is, I like the Pirates, you like the Phillies, he likes the Rockies. Let's get a case. We'll split it. You take your team, I'll take my team. And everybody, we only want what we want. So let's all just chip in and we'll do it. Again, I worked in the travel industry for years. It's like timeshare. Timeshare at its core was a good idea, right? It's like, hey, we all chip in. We'll get a place for the winter. You'll take a week. I'll take a week. And then it gets bastardized. And that's kind of what breaks and group gambling are to me, which is like, hey, early on, it was kind of a good idea. And I will also like to add, which I may do a video on entirely at one point, which is there, to me, there are two types of breakers. There are breakers who they're kind of just a way station for product. They're just like, it's rip and run. This is most of the bigger breakers where it's like the product comes out and retails 150 and they're at whatever, 175 to 200 bucks. And obviously they didn't pay retail, they pay, but they're just trying to rip whatever 20 cases and move on. And then you have other breakers who try and take that $150 box and break it 97 different ways and then charge $1,000 for it. And you know that's a lot of it. With card breaks have turned the hobby into a gambling-like experience. You pay to join a break, like buying a raffle ticket, and hope the box yields a high return for your team or player slot. Like again, we have random draws, stash or pass. There's just a lot of gambling inside there, and what it does is it lowers the price point. And that's where when you go backwards, it's like, okay, the case was whatever $2,000, and we're 20 guys, and we each put in $100, and we lowered the price point, right? Because I didn't want to buy a case, you don't want to buy a case. So, but lowering the price point just invites more people in, and that's why I said when I talk into the two types of breakers. The breakers who turn a $150 box into a $900 box, you got to remember that $150 box is probably going to yield $75 worth of cards. And it doesn't change whether they charge $200 for it or $900 for it. It's still going to yield it. But it's just marketing and price point. It's like, hey, somebody doesn't want to, you know, buy in for whatever, 200 bucks, but they have 30 and they just they want some skin in the game. I mean, we have grown into a gambling culture with DraftKings, FanDuel, casinos in every state. You know, when I was younger, there were casinos in New Jersey and Nevada. Now they're casino gambling in like 40 of the 50 states or something along those lines. It's not, none of this is preaching. It is just talking about how ultimately we got from a point of having collectors drive the hobby to now the gamblers drive the bus. And let's keep going here. Skyrocketing prices for products. Box used to be 50 to 100 bucks. Now many retail for hundreds or even thousands. You often never getting close to that value out of box. So buying a box becomes a roll of the dice. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's, I'm primarily a non-sports card collector, but I have collected sports. I started in sports cards. But creating these high-end boxes that are thousands of dollars and just listen, the market is the market, right? Like, there are things that I blame. So we'll talk about there are things I blame on the producers of the products, the Fanatics, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck. And there are things I blame on the collectors. What I blame on Topps and or Fanatics, specifically Topps and Fanatics, is that the stuff I collect, they don't put out accurate odds or checklists. Now, imagine going to a casino where it's like, I want to bet on a roulette wheel and I bet on number 25 and they're like 44. I'm like, wait, there are only 36 spots here. Like, oh, sorry. I don't believe that there's proper auditing or regulation of the initial source, which is like if Topps is going to put out, or any of these companies are going to put out cards that are worth, upon opening, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. There needs to be a little more oversight in this to make sure it's fair, that we understand the odds, and all those things along that, which is, to me, we've talked, there have been many times people talk about influencer boxes. And I don't know if I see it as much anymore, where they would be like, oh, Cade Cunningham's opening a box with so-and-so, and they hit 3 Cade Cunningham rookies into it, or they took a box to this person, oh, and suddenly they were really good. There were too many incidents for it to be coincidence, to be honest, in my opinion. And that is part of this, which is like, hey, it might be there's one of these cards in every 1,000 boxes, but we know which ones they're in, and we put them over here on the left-hand side, just in case we have some celebrity who wants to open a box. That's part of but the skyrocketing cost of retail prices is because people will pay it. And this is where they're not at fault. Or, people complain that the price is too high, that the, boxes used to be $50 or $100. I can blame them for trying to like create these higher end products, which then have these higher chases. But like if you made whatever, I don't know, but whatever. I make these. One company I have makes these hearts that have custom songs on it. If I sold them to the public for $50, and there were people that were just buying them and reselling them for $200 immediately, wouldn't I just raise the price and sell them for $200? Like you can't blame them for getting market price for their product. Now I understand that, like, hey, they have distributors and stuff like that, and a lot has changed with direct to consumer. But yeah, the product prices have gone up because they've tried to manufacture these hits. But at the end of the day, the price of the product is what it is because people pay it. And so, but part of what makes it gambling is, listen, when I talked about being a kid, is I remember buying, again, I'm aging myself horribly, buying a box of 1985 tops for $20. And like, yeah, it was gambling. And you know, I probably hit, in all honesty, at that time, you probably the expected value was higher. You know, you would probably get more than $20 worth of cards, but you know, like getting $24 worth of cards out of it, you had to put in more than $4 of effort to get those $4 out. You know, the world definitely changed when we got to the internet age of stuff. And when you create these higher price points, you're going to create greater variance and greater gambling. And what this did is when you combine the group breaks and here, we'll go into the next one here. This should be number 4. But we're talking about manufactured scarcity. Chase cards and manufactured scarcity, right? 1980s. You know, this is what part of what created junk wax was they printed the 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. to the moon. And there was like, you know, just too many of them. So they had to come up with a way to create scarcity. This with autographs and numbered cards. And then obviously they added in triple, rookie patch auto, reverse, underdog, whatever, you know, and these cards you can, and throw in bounties with this where they're like, hey, you know, somebody out there is offering $1 million if you hit this card in this packet, which is another part of something that I think should be considered policed, right? Like if a major reseller, like one of the big breakers, is offering hundreds of thousands of dollars for a bounty on a card, I want to know for sure that they're not being incentivized by that company, because that's you're just turning it into pure gambling. If you're like, hey, if you hit this card, you can get $1 million cash for it, and it's like it's actually from the company. They're just selling glorified lottery tickets at that point. But manufactured scarcity is this point of one-on-ones, and we've seen the progression of this, which has created the intense gambling, which is, hey, they're one-on-ones. I am just blown away by the idea of like we have products with just dozens of one-of-ones in it now, of a single player character, whatever it may be. And it's like, this is just insane. It's created, you know, again, having a background in gambling, spending so much time in casinos. It's, you know, I love casinos. I don't really gamble anymore, but I love just the idea of it. It's just insane the way it works on people's brain. But this is what they're doing. If you've ever played a slot machine, slot machines used to be, and this is kind of the same evolution, you just spin the wheel and you either win or you lose. And now if you play a slot machine, it's like you're playing 25 different ways and you probably win something, and you'll be like, oh, I just spun $10 and I got $6.23 back. But the machine will go off and make no sounds and blink lights like you just won $1 million. That is well researched to make your brain do certain things and get excited. Now, what they learned is it's better to make you think you won, make you say, oh, you won $6, not you lost $4. And that's what manufactured scarcity does. And that's why we've grown the number of parallels. We've grown the number of one-on-ones. We've grown the autographs. Why autographs has gone from on-card to sticker, because they're cheaper and they can put more in there. And it's all gambling. And the issue is that the scarcity, which collectors were once excited about, because, hey, listen, how many, you know, Ken Griffey rookies are there? There are only a couple. But now you're just like, you have the 101, the patch auto, the this, the that, the other thing, the gold, the all these crazy things that you can chase. But now it got to a point where collectors can't even chase this anymore. I remember early on in my resurgence into collecting, as I was learning about numbered cards, somebody talking about being like a player collector and talking about how I collect a certain player, but this year there are 1,300 variations of their card. Like, you can't do that. So you legitimately cannot collect all these variations. The reasons they exist is not for collecting. They exist for the idea of that dopamine in your brain to go bing, bing, bing. I won $6. Not I lost $4. Look at this gold out of 50 I got, or this green out of 199, or this auto of somebody who nobody cares about. It's just the gambling. It's just to keep the gambling machine churning. It's not the old-fashioned spin the slot machine. You won or you lost. It's you won, kind of, right? And manufacturer scarcity is, listen, I'm not talking about this. All of this is smart business and logical progression. And it is the consumer driving this. And this is the point. The consumer wants the casino. There are more, I should take this back, is there are more consumers for the casino than there are for collecting. And it's just obvious if I've seen this over the last few years that we've kind of seen this kind of like, if you look at cards that are a few years older, just a few years older, there's just no interest in them because there's no machine behind it. Especially cards that are like 3 years old, there's very little interest in them, except for obviously the super scarce ones, which we'll go into kind of the last. Well, that's funny because I have another one here. It's not the last one, so we'll go back. Flipping and an obsession with ROI. Collectors used to chase cards because they love the sport of the player. Now many treat it like a stock market. That mentality pushes people to gamble more on hits for resale. This is the culture, right? And I am guilty of this. There was a time that I flipped a lot of cards and that I wasn't really gambling. I don't consider myself lucky with opening packs. I have been, but in general, it was easy to see that singles were a better bet than opening boxes. When the best card you could pull was less expensive than the box itself, you're paying a lot for the experience. But let me go backwards here because I had this other infographic up here, which is, I'll go here, influencers and the hype culture. That's part of this, is that when you have the breakers, most of these guys have disappeared. The guys who would go to every card show and be like, I'm buying this $6,000 card, just flipped it for $9,000. And everybody, that in itself, it's content, it's interesting, but it feeds the gambler when they go to the casino, of like when they go. So it's the whole process of, okay, I go to buy the box. Most of the stuff is going to breakers right now. And that people have now watched this content, and in their mind, they're like, oh, I hit the right card. I can flip it. I can turn it into money. In truth, most people don't sell the cards. Because if they sell the cards, then they would have to tell themselves, they'd have to admit that they lost money. That a lot of these cards are just not worth what people think they're worth. And I see it all the time where people will hit a big card and they'll put it up for sale, what the breaker told them it's worth, and they can't sell it for that price. Sometimes there's an odd sale that'll be like, oh, okay, this single sale proves that you could get the price for you think for your card. But that is an outlier. It is not the actuality. And if all these cards went on the market would crash. Again, this is pure gambling. And when you have the influencers and the breakers talking it up and getting people excited about essentially winning money, not about collecting, right? When people, I try to create a graphic which talked about just the general Venn diagram, like the intersection of there are gamblers, there are collectors, and then there are people that intersect. And essentially my feeling is that the collectors have been shrinking and the gamblers have been growing, and the intersection of gambler collectors has been shrinking. It is mostly pure gamblers that are driving the market. And how does this, on top of it, change everything? I don't want to talk too much longer on this. It's about the product they make. And we go, blind backs, skyrocketing products is that, so me personally, like you, I don't know what you collect. You collect baseball, football, basketball. I collect Star Wars. That's my main thing, non-sports. Again, I have football, I have basketball. But I got into Star Wars a few years ago, and they have decided to just destroy uh, kind of what amounts to 45 years of collecting tradition, where they had always made cards that related to their movies and TV shows. And they've given that up because it doesn't work for breaking. And I understand the financial decision, but no, I can tell you that people are the number of collectors are shrinking, and in truth, how many Darth Vader cards can you have? When you're basically making hundreds of variations of Darth Vader each year, it's not changing. Darth Vader's been Darth Vader since 1977, and it kind of leads to fatigue with collectors. So the collectors are just like, most of this stuff I don't want, right? Like you get into hey, you become really selective because you can't collect the whatever 600 different Darth Vader variations. You're like, I'm just going to collect this small circle of it. But for me personally, I collected the shows and movies, and they just abandoned it because there aren't enough hits in a single show or a single movie to allow the breakers to create chases. And that they basically just decided not to do it. So now this is the point. The gambling is driving the bus. And I'm sure whatever it is you collect, you see the exact same thing, which is they're creating the product to be gambled upon at the highest level because that is what is rising the profits. And, there isn't a lot of huge good news in card collecting where, they'll be like, oh, the Paul Skeens card sold for this much money. It's like, okay. I mean, or the triple auto Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. But those are lottery tickets. If you look, the reason that opening boxes, we get back to that pure idea of being a young person, opening a box and the joy of kind of unwrapping presents. And now it doesn't exist. The retail is so they've taken out big hits out of retail, only put it in hobby to make it expensive. It there is no kind of purity to it. I do think that probably in TCG there's more of that, but again, I'm not as well versed in that. But the product is being built to fuel the gambler, which means the collectors are shrinking, and over time, that if you don't have collectors, you just have a gambling device. And how long can you trick people into thinking the idea that they're gambling, that they're collecting and not gambling? Yeah, it's kind of what people are be like, I'm gambling with stuff that other people collect. You know what I mean? That is really kind of the overall thing. It's I don't really care about this, but I think there's somebody else out there who does care about this. And that if I hit it, then I'll be able to sell it to that guy. And, I see it all the time. And where people hit I hit this, whatever, out of 5 autograph of this person. I'm like, but you don't like that person. Be like, yeah, but it's because you think you can sell it to somebody else. And the number of somebody else's who are willing to buy it are shrinking because they're not making product for them. So they lose interest. I am speaking, it is so hard to not speak what is purely your own point of view. This is definitely my point of view, but I have examined it in others. I am seeing plenty of people. Some people come to it sooner. Some people come to it later. Some people migrate to different types of collecting. Some people just stop buying cards, or I've seen a lot of people kind of they've definitely stopped breaking as much stuff, or not breaking online, or trying to cherry pick breaks where things fall through, or just realizing, hey, I've definitely taken into a habit of going, what does a box of this stuff cost? And go, what? Let's rule out the 0.001% cards. Let's take a card that I would be happy to hit, would think maybe 1 in 100 boxes. If that card is less than the cost of the box, I'll just buy the card. Yeah, it doesn't seem as much fun. And this is kind of the point, is it doesn't perpetuate itself. It's because I want to open stuff, but I know that the stuff I'm willing to pay for is kind of going to be useless. So it slowly kills the collector. And this is part of it, which is everybody wants to think that there's this cliff that we drive off of. And I speak now as I'm watching certain markets in this world drive off cliffs. But usually things happen slowly and then all at once. And that's what I think is happening with card collecting, which is all the powers that be, which are essentially eBay, PSA, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, they've all been letting this gambling culture run the industry, and it's definitely going to run it into the ground. Like, it's a matter of time. TCG, it's a different ballpark, and it's an entirely different thing. And if I am talking about purely sports cards and traditional non-sports cards. TCG is probably the future, and because I think there is more purity and more nostalgia to it, and there are much more children into it, and I think that's the younger people that I saw get into cards. A lot of younger people basically have left cards. They got excited about it during the pandemic. They had nothing to do with it, and now it's like kind of passe. And that's usually what happens when something shoots up. But I don't know. My just prediction is like a complete implosion on both the sports and non-sports card markets from product. Like, I think product is going to come way down. I've seen it already. Whereas, like, kind of the first product that hits the shelf does really well, and then people are all excited about it, and then the second one kind of is flat, and then everyone after that is kind of terrible. And people catch on eventually. Most of the people, it takes them a while. But nobody wants to go to a casino and feel like they have no chance of winning. And if you lose enough, you feel like you don't have a chance of winning. And if the only people that stick around are the people who are either like think they can win or actually won, that number is too small. And the market's not big enough. And the secondary market's like, again, if you are a collector and you want to stay a collector, the gambling culture will feed you, because a lot of people that are accumulating the cards just are not collectors, don't care about them, and when they eventually go to sell them, they're just going to get rid of them. And that might be good or bad. I don't know. Like I mentioned before, there is this duality of people wanting not to sell them because then they have to accept the fact that they lost all this money. You can be like, I spent $10,000 on breaks, but I have these cards. No, maybe today, you can lie to yourself. It's so easy to lie to yourself about what cards are worth that are not liquid. And the less liquid the card is, the easier it is to lie to yourself. And, or to tell yourself, this is a prospect, and I'm playing for the future. And there's so many ways that we can lie to ourselves that we can kind of push forward the gambling culture. And listen, we live in a bigger gambling culture, and I understand why Fanatics and all the other people have done this. I mean, I think PSA is part of it too. It's like, I used to grade with PSA because I enjoyed the gambling aspect of it. I thought it was a better gamble than opening product. I still think it is, but again, that's a different ball of wax. But you just have to ask yourself, where does this end? And are we going to get a box that costs $100,000? Like, is that where we're going? And then, again, I don't want to get into the whole cat scanning boxes and all this. Like, it just, the greater the variance becomes and the bigger the casino, the more scrutiny there should be. And I truly do believe that this is a group effort. I do think it starts at the top with the card collecting companies, the grading companies, the resellers, and then it goes into the breakers next. But I think it's a team effort all around to create this casino culture, this cardboard casino. And where does it end? I think it ends pretty horribly, but I think it was kind of always going to end horribly. And I think that that's a bit of what Fanatics probably knows, is that we better make hay while the sun is shining. And I don't know. We shall see. That's going to do it for me. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please comment. Tell me what you think. Do you participate in this cardboard casino? Like, subscribe, do all those things. I'm going to do a couple more videos this week and just pop them out there. I have some thoughts in my head, and that's when I like to do these, when I have some thoughts in my head. So I'm not Sports Cards. You take care.